What do you think about when I say communication? Probably you think about talking to someone you know, or them talking to you, right? Well, communication involves much more than just talking. Learning the different parts of the communication process is necessary to effectively say what you want to say in a way that people hear what you want them to hear. As a junior health educator, when trying to educate your friends and family about their personal health and well-being, if you're not communicating in a way that they understand, then you may be wasting your breath. In the first part of this lesson, we're going to talk about the basic elements and types of communication, the barriers or roadblocks, and how to do a presentation. Communication is an important life skill for anyone, but especially important for health educators. Take a look at this interaction and see if you can see where the communication goes wrong.
Ugh. I'm so annoyed with myself. You know, it's perfectly clear. You know, I work out, I feel better. Easy enough, right? Yeah, just can't make myself go to the gym though, can I? Oh, and guess what? Yeah, I ate Mom's peanut butter brownies. A whole bunch of them.
What brownies?
Just a blob. Ugh, I can't even keep a routine. I mean, sucks.
Oh my god, no way.
What's so funny over there?
It's nothing, it's this video Dan sent me of like this miniature horse. It's like it's possessed or something.
Are you listening to what I was saying just now? Hello, Matt. Totally depressed over here. Need your help.
Calm down, Laura. I mean, there's bigger problems in the world. Just go running or something.
Why are you blowing me off? I mean, last week you gave me such great advice about all this stuff, and I thought you cared, and now you can't even pause the stupid horse thing for 2 seconds.
Okay, I do care, Laura. It's just I don't know what to tell you.
Motivation and how I need your help to be motivated, and you're not even listening to me.
I can't be your on-call therapist. I've got stuff to do too.
That is not what I'm saying.
You know, whatever. I'm not gonna have this conversation right now. I'm gonna put on these headphones. Please don't be offended.
Ever.
Didn't go quite like he hoped, did it? Let's learn more about effective communication and see if we could improve the situation. Okay, let's get started with the basics. There are 4 basic elements of communication. They are the sender, or the person speaking, the receiver, or the person listening, the message, or what is being said, and the feedback, or what's being heard. First, we'll take a look at the person talking. They have a big responsibility in making sure they send their message in a way that the receiver can understand. If you're the speaker, you need to pay attention to the choice of words you use, the tone of your voice, how fast you're talking, and if you're using words not everyone would understand. Think back to the last big conversation you had with your parents or grandparents. Did they fully understand what you were trying to tell them? Did you speak in a tone and speed they could understand clearly? Did you use words or references they did not know or make your message clear? Or did you get frustrated, roll your eyes, and go off to your room or out with your friends? To be good at conversation, you need to also be a good listener. In this role, you need to listen to what the other person has to say. In the age we're now living, people tend to be doing 3 things at once, and it's easy to miss crucial pieces of what's being said because we're occupied doing other things. When someone is speaking to you, stop other activities. Look the speaker in the eye and focus on what's being said. You may want to lean forward or nod to let them know you're listening. It's important to hear the specifics of what they're saying and why they're saying them. When you're speaking, be clear and stay focused on the facts. Try to think about the words you're choosing, nicknames or slangs you may need to explain, and your personal tone or appearance when you send the message. The listener, in turn, needs to provide feedback to the sender by doing something like head nodding in agreement. They may also want to paraphrase what they heard back to the sender to make sure they're on the same page. To do this, you can use phrases like, "so you're saying," or "let me get this straight." It's also important that both the sender and the receiver pay attention to the nonverbal communication and body language during their interaction. You could be giving someone the best compliment they've ever had, but if you say it in a gruff voice with a scowl on your face, do you think they will take it as a compliment? Probably not. Likewise, When someone is trying to share something with you and you stand there with your arms crossed or act bored, do you really think they feel like you care about what they're trying to say? Again, probably not. Take a second to think about a time that you may have sent the wrong message because your body language did not match the words you were actually speaking. You may be thinking that it's not your fault they misunderstood you because you were thinking about something else when you said it. But remember, people can't read minds, so they act based solely on what they see and hear. When working on your communication skills, a good one to learn is the use of I statements or messages. The I statement is based on a simple formula. It goes like this: I feel this emotion when you act this way because it makes this happen. I would rather you do this instead. Let's say, for example, you have a friend that is always late when you're going out, and because you keep waiting for her, you've missed out on some very important things. One choice is to yell and lecture your friend about being late and ruining your social life, or even choose not to hang out with her anymore. In this case, the friend is going to feel attacked and will probably respond in the same way. By using an I statement, you can address the root of the problem and probably prevent the loss of a friend. It would go something like this: I feel like you don't value me or my feelings as a friend when we make plans to do something and you don't show up on time, because we miss out on activities you know I really wanted to do. I would rather we start meeting at the place we're going so that I can do what I want to do even if you don't show up on time. By using this kind of statement, you've stated the facts, relayed your feelings, and offered a solution. This also lets them know that you think your friendship is worth more than a few mistakes. Since they aren't put on the defensive, they may apologize or tell you why they're always late or come up with an alternative solution. Even if they continue to be late, they understand why you may go without them. Take a few minutes to practice writing an I statement. Remember, it's easy with the formula. Now that you've had time to practice, let's take a look at how the original conversation could have been better using good communication skills.
Morning.
Oh, hey. You can check out this video Dan sent me. It's so weird.
Yeah, well, why don't you email it to me and I'll check it out later.
Yeah, sure.
Matt, do you have a second to talk?
Yeah, that's fine. Sure, I got time. Alright, what's up?
Well, I don't know. I've been feeling really unmotivated and stuck in my health lately, and last week, you talked to me about working out and keeping a routine, but I haven't worked out in 3 days, and, well, I feel like I'm failing miserably, and I'm just like this blob,
Hey, don't be so hard on yourself. I mean, just because you haven't worked out for a few days doesn't mean you have to quit. I know you can get back on the horse, I mean, you will. It's just...
Yeah, you're right. It's a good way to look at it.
I know you can do it, but it helps to try to focus on the positive aspect of things. Like, you can be grateful for your health. And if you have that attitude, you'll want to work harder every day.
You know what? You're right. Thanks for listening to me. I mean, it really does help talking to you when I'm feeling down like this. You have a great outlook.
Anytime. Don't worry. I know you're on the right track. Just don't beat yourself up too much.
You're right. Okay, I think I'm gonna head out.
Where are you going?
I think I'm gonna go run the lake.
Nice. Well, do you think I'd come along? I've just been staring at this thing for way too
Well,
long.
I would love that. And seriously, Matt, thank you. I mean, I'm already feeling better.
All right, well, let's get going.
Okay, I'll go change.
That went much better, didn't it? There are a couple of other things we need to talk about, since as a junior health educator, you will be educating and promoting healthy behaviors among peers, community members, and mentors. Certain types of communication can act as a roadblock when communicating a message. Behaviors or messages that trigger feelings that damage a person's self-esteem or make them feel guilty, rejected, judged, disrespected, or put down lead to resistance, retaliation, and hurt feelings. There are two general groups of behaviors you need to avoid when trying to educate or empower people. The first is imposing your personal or community beliefs, morals, opinions, and knowledge on the people you're working with. Using ordering, directing, or commanding statements like you must do, don't do, quit complaining, Or warning or threatening statements like, if you do that, you'll be sorry, or you had better do it this way, will typically trigger a person's defense mechanisms, and they'll resist just to prove they can. In addition, most people know the consequences of their actions and do not want you to provide warnings as if they're not aware. Judging, criticizing, moralizing, preaching, or blaming can have the same effect. This would involve using statements like, I can't believe you shouldn't do, or it's only right to. If they feel like you're judging them, or have negative feelings about what they do or have done, they'll be much less likely to open up and listen to what you have to offer. Always remember, you're working with the person to evaluate and solve the issue, not trying to give them all the answers. The second thing you want to avoid is making people feel like they're inferior by acting certain ways. You can see this in statements such as, that was stupid, why on earth would you do that? And you usually have a good judgment, but you have no idea what led them to make their decision. And condescending statements sound like you really only care about yourself. You can also give the impression that you know everything by assuming you know how someone feels. Saying things like, I know how you feel, you're only saying that because you're angry. When you have no way of truly knowing how someone feels can be hurtful. Many people use this type of statement to try to make someone feel better, not to hurt them. The last, but probably most common communication roadblock is trying to change the subject. You'll commonly hear things like, we'll talk about that later, or you think you have problems. When you change the subject or try to push them off, they might assume you don't really care about what they're going through or have to say. If you truly need to postpone the conversation, make sure you explain why, such as, I really want to hear what you're trying to say, but I can't devote the time and attention it deserves right now. Could we schedule a time later to talk more? Now that you know how to use the 4 basic components of communication, let's look at how to use these skills to present information to an individual or group. You've probably been told many times by your English teachers that when you're writing a paper, you need to tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you just told them. The same goes for when you're presenting information. First, give the audience an overview of your topic. Then follow with your main points, including details, and finish with a summary of what you've just presented. If it's a group or individual that you've not worked with before, you also need to introduce yourself and tell them a little bit about why you're presenting. And always end with a thank you, whether they're listening or participating. As you get ready to do a presentation, you need to follow the 3 P's: preparation, practice, and performance. Let's start with preparation. Make sure you know what you're talking about before you try to pass it on to others. Your material needs to be based on facts and not opinions or hearsay. You need to provide information that helps the audience understand why it's important, and be ready to provide sources if they ask. An example of something not to do would be to talk to teens about the high rates of heart disease in middle-aged adults. And unless you point out that what they do in their teens affects their risk of falling into this group later, they may not see how your information is applicable to themselves and will probably tune you out. You need to make sure your information is organized and presented in a logical manner. If you're bouncing all over the place with your information, people will probably lose interest or become confused. Once you have your information organized, it's important to practice the delivery. You could practice with a member of your family or friends, or maybe a teacher. Ask them to tell you what you presented to them in their own words to make sure you're conveying the message that you want. When you do, also make sure you're open to suggestions for changes or improvements. There is always room for improvements, so don't take it personally. Finally, get ready for the performance. You want to make sure you appear confident and knowledgeable when the big day comes to do your presentation. Delivery greatly affects how people receive your message. In fact, about 75% of your presentation is nonverbal communication. So, dress appropriately, pay attention to your gestures, tone, and volume, and maintain eye contact with your audience. Remember, it's better to say, I don't know, but we'll find that out for you, than to make something up or guess. Doing so will build your credibility with that person or group, as long as you follow up with a reply. Above all, try to keep the presentation as enjoyable and as interactive as possible. Okay, now let's learn a little bit about how to get information from others. Most people think that a question is just a question. Did you know that there are 4 general types of questions? The different types are designed to get certain kinds of answers. For example, closed-ended questions are looking for just the facts. The answers to these questions are short and exact, often yes or no. You use these types of questions to gather concrete information, such as, what year were you born, or have you had chickenpox? In a group setting, it may sound like, how many people exercise at least 3 days per week? You're looking for a basic head count, not information about what they do or how long they do it. Have you ever noticed that this type of question is always the first on questionnaires? You start with this type because it tends to be non-threatening and requires little thought. It allows a little time for everyone to get comfortable and acquainted. You then move on to the open-ended question. These questions take more thought and allow the participants to go into details when giving their explanation, feelings, or concerns. This would look something like, what type of exercise do you like the most? Or, what have you done in the past to lose weight? Listen for things that they say that may need additional clarification. This leads us into the next type of question, which is the probing question. You use the probing question to get additional information or to clarify something someone may have said while asking open-ended questions. For example, if they said, I tried the liver and onion diet and it stunk, you may want to follow up with a probing question like, what about the liver and onion diet would you say stinks? This kind of question helps you find out if they think it stinks because they didn't lose weight, the liver and onions were gross, or it literally stunk. The information you gather in this stage can help you better address misconceptions. However, you have to be careful not to let yourself move into the realm of the fourth type of question, the leading question. As a health educator or community leader, you want to avoid the use of this type of question. Leading questions lead or push the person responding to answer the question in a certain way by how you phrased or asked the question. This might look like, doesn't everyone do some kind of exercise every day, like walking to the car or cleaning the house? A person hearing this question would be likely to agree, because if they disagreed, they would not be part of everyone. Whereas, if when asked if they exercise every day, they might normally say no, because they only considered structured activity as exercise. They might change their answer if they're led to think they are devalued if they don't. The purpose of any question is to gather information only, not to educate, inform, or make comments based on beliefs. As you're going through the questioning process, you need to practice using your listening skills. Active listening will allow you to gather the most information from both verbal and nonverbal conversations. It's important to assure the person talking you're listening to what they have to say. As we learned earlier, you can do this by looking them in the eye and, if culturally appropriate, showing physical attention such as nodding or leaning toward the person speaking, and providing verbal reinforcement such as okay, or I hear that. It's also helpful to restate what the person has said in your own words based on both verbal and nonverbal statements. This helps to avoid confusion later if you misunderstood what they were intending to say. As you can see, picking the right type of question to ask is an important part of getting the information you're after. If you ask someone, do you have a family history of cancer? They will probably answer simply yes or no. That will not tell you what kind of cancer, who had the cancer, at what age they were diagnosed, or if they survived. All these things would be helpful when looking at their individual cancer risk and possible prevention measures. The education and screening recommendations would be very different if a woman's mother died from breast cancer at 40 than if it was her father who had prostate cancer at 75. Likewise, you wouldn't ask, don't you worry about your cancer risk since you eat a high-fat diet and are overweight? Whether she was concerned or not before, she's now going to be worried about what weight and diet have to do with cancer. Just remember the old saying, it's all in how you ask. Take a few minutes to write out the questions you would use to find out what type of activities people do for fun. Write a question in the format of each of the 4 types we've talked about. Now that you have the skills to gather all that information, we need to talk about what you can and cannot do with the information you learn. Patient confidentiality has long been an issue for people in healthcare. If you were talking to someone about sensitive health information about, let's say, you find out you have an STI or a sexually transmitted infection, or that you're pregnant, how honest would you be when you filled out forms or answered questions at a health facility if you thought the information might get out to your friends and family? How would you feel if you received information in the mail congratulating you on a pregnancy that no one knows about, or treatment coupons for your STI? Worse, what if the receptionist turns out to be in your mom's Sunday school class? How bad would that be if we didn't have protection? To protect people's rights as consumers, to restore trust in the healthcare system, and to keep people's health information from unauthorized disclosure and use, the federal government created the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act of 1996, or HIPAA. HIPAA sets the national standard for the protection of client privacy. The regulations affect all staff, volunteers, and visitors at any healthcare facility. There are both civil and criminal penalties for misusing patient health information, with fines up to $250,000 and 10 years in prison. To release any information that could be used to identify someone, such as name, address, photo, email, etc., you must receive permission from that person unless it fits into one of the TPO categories. TPO stands for treatment, payment, and operation. So if someone doesn't need the information to treat the person, bill for payment, or for operations such as quality improvement or auditing, they need permission from the patient to release their information. When working with individuals or even with groups, participant privacy is extremely important. If you need to discuss personal information with someone, it's best to move to a secluded area and talk in lower voices so that others cannot hear the information being discussed. Things that are discussed should not be shared with others unless you have that person's permission, or it's done in a manner that does not identify the person as the source of the information. When we think of identifying information, we usually think of name, address, phone, social security, or license, etc. But we also need to consider things that we think of less often, such as photographs, dates of service, vehicle information, physical descriptions, or history. Remember the receptionist who is friends with your mom? Well, even saying that she saw you recently violates your rights, since your mom is going to want to know where and why. You need to really look at the situation and ask yourself, could anything I'm reporting be traced back to the source? For example, if you had 35 women and 1 man in a focus group, and you ask each person individually if they have ever had an STI, you could report 24% of all participants answered yes, but could not say 26% of women and 100% of men answered yes, because this would give away the man's condition. Likewise, you have to be careful with anything that is written down. If you, for example, collect the height and weight measurements for a fitness challenge with your friends and family and wrote them down on a chart beside each person's name for tracking purposes, you would not want to leave the paper out for others to see. You also would not discuss any individual measurements with anyone but that person. And once you're done using the information, it's best to shred it. You may be thinking, what's the big deal? It's only weight. But it's not your decision as to what is and isn't a big deal. Let's look at the brief video and see if you can tell the areas in which confidentiality has been violated.
Okay, so if I can convince Kelly to talk to this guy, it can help her, right?
Yeah, I think so.
I just don't think she's gonna like this. I don't even think she realizes that she has a problem.
He's the best resource I know. Eating disorders are common among people our age, and it's good for her to meet people going through the same thing. It's good for her to know that she's not alone. I can text you the number to the treatment center if you like. It's at home.
Thanks, Megan. Please just don't say anything to anybody about this. She'd freak out if people knew.
No, I won't. Everything you say to me is completely confidential. I just like helping out where I can.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Hi, Anna. Everything's good. I'm good.
Hey.
Listen, I'm gonna go. I'm supposed to meet Kelly.
Alright, I'll text you.
All right, thanks. See you guys.
Whoa, what was that about?
Nothing. Sorry, I really can't tell you.
No problem, I understand. So, how is the junior health educator thing going? Is that what you were doing?
It's really good, actually. I like helping my friends out.
What kinds of things have you been helping out with?
You know, listening, giving advice where I can. I even teach people how to live healthier lifestyles and even help people with eating disorders, you know, bulimia, weight issues, things like that.
Wait, bulimia? Is that what Chris was asking you about? I always thought Kelly had a problem with that. You can tell something is up.
No, I didn't say that. I didn't mention anyone, not Kelly. It's just an example of what I'm trying to deal with.
I knew it. God, poor Kelly. She's so beautiful. Why is she worrying about her weight?
It's a bit more complicated than that. You can't tell anyone. I promise, Chris.
Don't worry, I won't tell anyone. That's so crazy. I knew something was off with her.
I'm serious. You really can't say anything. I feel horrible.
Dude, calm down. The secret is safe with me. Wait, can't I just tell Julia? I'm sure she already knows. Please.
So what do you think? How would you feel if you were in this situation? Remember, once you've lost the trust of a person or group, it's difficult to gain it back. Okay, let's review what we have learned about communication. First, we learned that there are 4 basic parts of communication: the sender, the receiver, the message, and the feedback. Each of the parts is equally important to have good communication. When discussing something, especially if it's unpleasant, I statements are great to use. You state the emotion you feel related to the other person's specific behavior, and then state your need, desire, or possible solution. When you're talking with people, you need to avoid communication roadblocks, such as imposing your own knowledge or beliefs on others, or making them feel inferior because of their opinions, beliefs, personal situation, or knowledge. Once you've mastered one-on-one communication, you're ready to tackle presentations. Remember, when presenting information, use the 3 Ps: preparation, practice, and performance. Make sure you know your stuff, and it's organized in a clear manner. Remember, tell them what you're going to tell them, and then tell them what you just told them. Once you have it ready, practice, practice, practice. Then stand up straight, look the audience in the eye, and deliver your information in a clear, distinct manner. Last, we learned about the 4 different types of questions and when to use each kind. You start with a closed, then move to open-ended, and finally probing. Try to avoid leading questions. As you ask questions or hold discussions, be an active listener by focusing on the person, providing assurance that you're listening, and providing feedback. One of the biggest rules of communication is what is said stays between you and that person, unless you have permission, or it fits into the HIPAA exceptions, the TPO thing. Good communication is a skill and needs to be practiced for you to become a good community or peer leader, not to mention it will make things much easier for you and everyone around you. Now that we've learned about the basics of communication, we're going to build upon the foundation in the next section by learning about interpersonal skills. Please take a minute to show us what you've learned. After you successfully complete the questions, you'll be able to move on to the next lesson.